there was 100 fish in a pond, and 13 of those fish were causing half of the issues in the pond. What should we do with those 13 fish?
Kill them and eat them. Kill them and eat them. Kill them and eat them.
We should kill the 13 fish?
Kill them and eat them. Kill them. Kill them.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Wachahakwadash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders at Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations as always to the elect. All right. And you saw that video. And as you've been watching, if you've been watching the videos, the elder Rachaya Kwam of the GMS London branch, I myself, other brothers as well, have been tapping into how Esau Edom is tapping back into his scientific racism. All right. And if you know anything about Esau Edom, all right, a victimized Edomite, all right, is a dangerous Edomite. All right. And if you look at how Trump, all right, Musk, and, the rest of these Edomites are moving, all right, pretty much you read these comments, as you see here, Esau is tapping back into his statistics. He's tapping back into his scientific racism. All right. And you're starting to see, the talking point of white guilt dying. You had this Edomite here, call some, so-called black, or I don't know if it was an African baby, N-word, and pretty much I don't know if she got fired, but she's got over 140K. All right. You're seeing all of these type of posts. Now I do have a X account, but I never use it. But the elder Rachaya Kwam has been tapping into it, and pretty much from what I'm hearing from him and other brothers, Esau Edom is on these different platforms going crazy, and they're talking about the talking point of white guilt. You see what I'm saying? White people have had enough. That's pretty much the talking point of, everything. Even this agent, Myron Gaines, telling white America to grab their nuts, and, when you look at, Jake here in America, a lot of what Esau is saying is true as pertaining to, BLM and, these different, marches and crying points, that the left, playing on Jake's emotions, got them crying for these stupid agendas, but not addressing their own wickedness. But in the grand scheme of things, Esau Edom is guilty. In the grand scheme of things, as we always go into, there is an inquisition. All right, which is an investigation going on against the so-called white man through the spirit, and it starts with the prophets, and they feel it. So what you see Esau doing, all right, I wish I can tap into all of the because he sends me stuff every day. So these Edomites are, on the internet going crazy. The talking point of white guilt, they're throwing it out. As you can see, Trump, he's tapping back into Edomite supremacy. Elon Musk, Edomite supremacy. Okay, and they're even talking about deporting people who are against their agenda, their own Americans. And we know who that's targeted at. But again, let's read this real quick, because what I want to do is tap into Lamech in the book of Genesis, the 4th chapter. And the mindset that Esau Edom is in is that basically before he attacks, all right, he likes to play the victim, and they're getting ready to attack. All right, you Israelites, the talking point of Jacob's trouble was always mocked at, but we're here, okay, with this regime that has been placed in office. We're definitely here. But I wanted to read this real quick. This is the book of 2nd Ezra, the 6th chapter, and the 18th verse. It said, "Behold, the days come that I will begin to draw nigh and to visit them that dwell on earth, and will begin to make inquisition of them, what they be that have hurt unjustly with their unrighteousness, and when the affliction of Sion shall be fulfilled." See, so the affliction of Sion, you Israelites, is being fulfilled. All right, and it comes at the end of Esau's world. You see, but there's an inquisition going out. Well, what is an inquisition? Somebody can put the definition on the comment board. I don't have time. But an inquisition is basically is an extensive investigation. And through this word going out, this world has been turned upside down. Okay, everybody's looking at Esau, Edom, even his own kind, bringing out, atrocities, particular experiments and wickedness that they've done. All right, that, for years they were made to feel bad about, especially over these last 8, all right, to 9 years. All right, when Obama got in till now, pretty much the talking point of white guilt, has been out there. Okay, and we know that that's a snare. Okay, but we're living in a time where now Esau is responding to that. He's responding to the talking point, all right, of his legacy, because we know what the book of Habakkuk says, right? Let's get Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter. All right, and I'm gonna rush through this. Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter. All right, and the 15th verse. Woe to them that giveth their neighbor drink, and that puttest thy bottle to him, and makest him drunken also, that thou mayest look on their nakedness. Thou art filled with shame for glory. Let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of Yahweh's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and a shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. So this is what's happening. The legacy of Esau, Edom is filled with rape, robbery, murder, wickedness. And what they're able to do is, when they're called out for that, point at Tyrone, all right, pull up these negative images of Jake, all right, which there's a reason Jake is in that spirit. Now, a part of our message condemns the way that Jake acts. A big part of our message and doctrine condemns the 2/3. All right, there's a judgment for them. All right, we're not here to, pacify the way Jake acts, but there is a reason tied to what Esau did as to why our people are in the spirit that they're in. Okay, and we know who's at the forefront of the music industry, Hollywood. We know who, portrayed this negative culture upon our people. All right, but through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahshua, the elect have stepped outside of that box, which is why in the book of Revelation, the 12th chapter, okay, it talks about the accuser of the brethren. Revelation 12:10 says, and I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength in the kingdom of our power and the power of his anointed, for the accuser of our brethren is cast down, all right, which accused them before our Lord day and night. So the accuser is Esau, Edom, okay, and a big aspect of his accusation, all right, is that somehow, some way, all right, he is under the threat, all right, of you Israelites. Ultimately, your very existence, okay, makes them feel uncomfortable. All right, there's this large amount of so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American that are torturing and giving Edomites a hard time, because in the back of their head they know that they're guilty. So when you look at this psychological, all right, this spirit that they're in, all right, it actually goes back to Cain, okay, which that's what I wanted to tap into. All right, now when you deal with the family line of Cain, let's read this real quick. In a nutshell, the book of Josephus, when you read it, which is a good history for any scholar or one teaching his Bible to tap into, it's not the end all be all of the doctrine, but he does give us some very good history. All right, and here, what we're going to do, okay, I typed in here just real quick so you can understand what we're getting ready to read. What does Josephus tell us about Cain and his descendants in a nutshell? Okay, it gives you the history on Josephus. Okay, is a historian. I believe he was a Levite at the time of the Roman Empire. Okay, because there's a lot of history and things recorded that, our forefathers had, access to that isn't written in the scriptures. Okay, what we have in the scriptures is a very abridged version of what actually happened. And when we read these stories, especially the first 5 books, it's very abridged. You can look up the word abridged, okay, shortened, all right, to write it down so that the reader can have an overall understanding of what happened. Now, Josephus emphasizes that Cain was not just a murderer, but a corrupt and self-willed man. When we hear about Cain and Abel, all right, we have to understand that these are two all right, generations. Just like Esau and Jacob were two nations of people, Cain and Abel, all right, who both came out of Adam, were two different nations, all right? And the legacies are established in the book of Genesis 4 and Genesis 5, leading up to Noah. Okay, so you have to understand that while the sons of God were on earth, Cain's lineage was also on the earth. So Josephus lets us know that Cain was not just a murderer, but a corrupt and self-willed man. After killing Abel, Cain feared for his life, all right? Well, why do you fear for your life when you're the one that did the act? See that? And remember, Cain said, am I my brother's keeper? This is the spirit of Esau, Edom. He does all of this wickedness, then he plays the victim. Esau did that. He gave away the birthright, then he was the victim for the consequence, right? It says he was not just a murderer, but a self-willed man. All right. After killing Abel, he feared for his life. Instead of repenting, right? He built the city. And we have to understand that the spirit of Cain, which all of the family line of Cain were flooded out at the time Noah got on the boat, that spirit returned, all right, through Esau. So Jacob and Esau is Cain and Abel all over again. Okay, and those two spirits are here in the earth, as it was prophesied in Genesis that the seed of the serpent would have enmity with the seed of the woman. So the friction that you see between the Edomites and the Israelites is spiritual. It's not something you can march away. It's something that is embedded in the story of the Lord. Okay, and it plays out, all right, in our very life right now. What do you think Donald Trump, the spirit he's in, is? He's the seed of the serpent. He's one of those particular Edomites, and he's coming in the spirit of Cain. So what I'm getting at here, after killing Abel, he built a city called Enoch after his son. So you had an Enoch that was of the sons of Cain. You had an Enoch that was of the sons of Adam through Seth. Okay, showing he preferred security and worldly achievements over obedience to the Most High. Don't we see this same thing now? Moral decay was in his line, his lineage. Cain's descendants are portrayed as becoming increasingly wicked. They advanced in technology and arts. All right. The first talking point of weaponry can be read here in Genesis, the 4th chapter. Okay. With one of Cain's descendants. Okay. Tubal Cain. Genesis 4. All right. And 22. All right. Let's see here. And Lamech's other wife, Zillah, gave birth to a son named Tubal Cain. All right. Bringing forth the energy of Cain, basically. He became an expert of forging tools of bronze and iron. All right. Tubal Cain had a sister named Lamech. So this is a lineage of people that were on the earth at the same time that the sons of God was on the earth. So as you see the sons of God, you know, getting into moral decay, right, that led to the flood, you best believe that the energy and influence of Cain and his descendants, just like today, all right, had a lot to do with that. And was not Esau blessed with the sword? Okay, so the first talking point of making weaponry, okay, goes back to one of the descendants of Cain. Okay, so as you go here, goodness gracious. Okay, let me get this out of here. Okay, going back here, it says, okay, they advanced in technology and arts, metalworking, music, all right, using music to destroy. But Josephus sees this not as a cultural progress, but as signs of moral, all right, degeneration. He accuses them of leading lives of people, pride, and sensual indulgence. All right, the same thing we see happening today. Remember, the scripture said that which is then is now. Josephus mentions Lamech and interprets his song as a confession he killed 2 men, all right, possibly his wives, lovers. You know, I don't know about all of that, because basically what we're getting at here, all right, and I'm going to read a little bit of it, is this particular song, one of the descendants of Cain sung, all right, in verse 23, okay? And this is the spirit of Esau, Edom today. Now, the name Lamech, okay, in the Hebrew, all right, which a lot of the names of the sons of Cain and the sons of, Adam through Seth are the same. When you read Genesis chapter 4 and chapter 5, a lot of the names are the same, but these are 2 different lineages. Okay, Lamech or Lamach, okay, it means powerful, okay? Now, that was Noah's father's name, but also the name of one of what? The fifth lineal descendant from Cain, okay? So, now that we know, all right, an overall view of what Cain's lineage was doing, all right, not only did Cain murder Abel, but his descendants, if that which is then is now, were most likely murdering, okay, and doing wickedness to the sons of God. And many of the sons of God were influenced by the descendants of Cain, which led to the flood. Okay, if you're putting two and two together. Now, this is one of Cain's descendants named Lamech. Okay, this is the book of Genesis chapter 4. All right. And we'll read verse 23. It says, I'll read it in the NLT. One day Lamech said to his wives, Adah and Zillah, hear my voice, listen to me, you wives of Lamech. I have killed a man who attacked me, a young man who wounded me. If someone who kills Cain is punished 7 times, because remember, all right, one of the, the Cain was cursed, but the Lord said nobody will be able to judge Cain. Okay, and we don't read about a judgment given unto Cain and his descendants. We know they were flooded out, but the judgment is going to take place through Esau, Edom. You see what I'm saying? So we're not justified in murdering Cain. We're not justified in taking down Esau, Edom on our own. If you do, you get judged harshly. Okay, you can't attack Esau. Okay, but right now they're pushing this narrative all over social media and in the news that they are, especially those small hats, okay, they're getting ready to justify, all right, putting hell on you Israelites and justify coming down with the sword because they are under the threat of persecution. They're under the threat of harm. And this is the very mindset you see here in Lamech's song right here, okay? It says, if someone who kills Cain is punished 7 times, then one who kills me will be punished 70 times 7. All right, times. All right, basically, I can get away with what the hell I want to get away with. No one will ever be able to judge me. All right, and we know according to the scriptures, Job 21 and I believe 31, the wicked is reserved to the day, all right, of doom, the day of judgment, which we're right up on those times, and they feel it. So when you look at the psychology, what I did is I typed in here, all right? I typed in here, okay? Can you help me understand Lamech's song in Genesis 4 and 23? Absolutely. Lamech's song in Genesis 4, 23 through 24 is one of the earliest pieces of Hebrew poetry in the Bible, okay? He's addressing his wives. Lamech speaks directly to his wives. This is unusual in Bible. It is one of the few examples of poetry. A man addressing woman in this sorts in a declarative way. The confession. He claims to have killed a man, not in battle, but apparently retaliation for being wounded or struck. Okay, so remember, Cain and Esau have the same spirit. All right, Cain was known as that wicked one. Okay, Esau is the wicked. Okay, again, that which is then is now. Mystery merely repeats itself. The boast or warning, the line about 70-fold, 77-fold, vengeance compares to his situation to Cain's. God protects Cain from vengeance after he murdered Abel by promising 7-fold vengeance on anyone who harmed him. Okay? And you wonder how Esau is able to do all of this wickedness without being addressed by the Lord, because the Lord wanted to address Esau at a particular time. Okay? It says Lamech declares that his own vengeance is even more extreme, 77-fold. This could be a boast. Lamech sees himself as even more powerful or fearsome than Cain. A warning, don't mess with me or my family. Look what I'm capable of. A lament or defense, less likely, but some interpret it as Lamech justifying his act. What it reflects, all right, is the growing violence and moral decay in early humanity. Cain introduced murder. Lamech amplifies it and takes pride in it. Instead of divine protection like Cain, Lamech declares his own right. Okay? Now, what I asked here, was he playing the victim to justify killing? He said ChatGPT said that's a really insightful question. And yes, it definitely sounds like Lamech could be framing himself as a victim to justify what he did. See that? The accuser of the brethren. In verse 23, it says, I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for striking me. He doesn't say he was attacked with deadly force, just that he was wounded or struck. So it seems like the killing was retaliatory and maybe excessive. By mentioning injury first, Lamech could be positioning himself as someone who was wronged, okay, which sets up a kind of moral justification for his act. He hit me, so I had the right to hit him or kill him. You see that? He hit me, so I had the right to kill him. Now, if you've been watching the videos, forget this guy's name. I was just thinking about him, but there's this Edomite who basically they're doubling. When you look at what Esau's doing, they're doubling down. Okay, let's see if I can find this article right here real quick. Okay, this is an example. Like Matt Walsh, he was talking about how basically he takes pride in how America was taken from the Native Americans because they were subhuman, or they were primitive, right? And when you look and read in Esau's, his writings, like Columbus and his cohorts, basically they talked about how nice and gullible the Native Americans were, all right? But how they justified it is that ultimately they were savages. So they justify what they did by saying this is a savage race of people. They bring nothing to the table. They're not building nothing, all right? And ultimately, when we came to their land, all right, they attacked us. Okay, so they were able to justify, and that's their science. You're subhuman, all right? You bring nothing to the table, all right? You have a low IQ, so we are justified in taking your land, the doctrine of discovery. But if you look at what Trump is doing, all right, Trump is talking about bringing back Columbus Day, because Columbus Day has been labeled what? Indigenous People Day over the last couple of years, right? Over these last years. I don't know when it came into fruition, but Trump is saying, no, we're calling it Columbus Day because what they're doing is doubling down on what they did. Now, when you listen to this guy, Matt Walsh, right, which you can look him up, this is him, you can find his tweets where he's talking all kind of shit, right? About he doesn't feel bad about the history of America. He's doubling down. He's tired of white guilt. All right, and this is the spirit that Esau is in, right? This is and he goes against the trans community. So he says some things that are good, but it's coming out, all right, that he's no different than the rest of these Edomites, okay? And you can find it. I did a video on it not too long ago, but again, the elder required quam, GMS, fear the Most High, 7 Ga. He goes into a lot of what Esau's doing. But again, all right, going back here, all right, it says the poetic style and the boastful tone, especially in verse 24, suggests Lamech is not remorseful. Instead, he's elevating his own sense of vengeance, all right, of vengeance way beyond God's protection of Cain. That makes it feel less of a plea in self-defense, but more like an arrogant self-justification. And this is what Esau's getting ready to do. It's like he's saying, if Cain could get divine protection for murder, I should get away with mine even more. So yeah, it reads like he's playing the victim to elevate his own power and excuse violence. It's a chilling example of how early in the biblical story justice gets twisted into personal vengeance. And this is what the small hats are getting ready to do. This is what Esau's getting ready to do. Okay? What I said was, would it be safe to say he killed one of the sons of God mentioned in Genesis 5? That's a fascinating idea, worthy of unpacking. So in Genesis 4, Lamech is part of Cain's line, while Genesis 5 gives us the genealogy of Seth. Now, have not we been breaking these things down? If you go into the history of our videos, we've been going into this, right? When you read Genesis 4 or 5, when you read, these ain't just names. These stories mean something. That the past ties to the present. Adam and Eve's third son, whose descendants are sometimes considered as the sons of God, especially when discussing 6 and 2. So even ChatGPT knows and understands that Genesis, the 6th chapter, ain't talking about fallen angels. It's talking about the lineage of Adam through Seth. and how they fell away from the righteous way. But Noah was the last of that righteous lineage, which is why the Lord chose him before he flooded the earth. These two genealogies, Cain and Seth's, run in parallel but are morally contrasted. Cain's line develops civilization, music, tools, but also becomes increasingly violent, Lamech, while Seth's line is associated with worshiping God. All right, see Genesis 4:26. It says, then began men calling on the name of the Lord. Okay, I have killed a man for wounding me and a young man for striking me. The word young man here, the Hebrew yalad, that's where you get the word lad, can refer to a boy or a youth, not necessarily a warrior or an enemy. Some scholars suggest that this killing was disproportionate, all right, perhaps even senseless. If we speculate that Lamech killed someone of Seth's line, just like his father did, but, you know, Seth wasn't born yet, okay, he killed Abel, all right, which ultimately, with that act, you have to understand, if he killed Abel, what he was trying to do was root the righteous lineage out of the earth. You see that? He was trying to root the righteous lineage out of the earth. So if the Lord didn't bless us with Seth, we wouldn't be here. It says, if we speculate that Lamech killed someone of Seth's line, possibly someone godly or innocent, that would deepen the moral contrast between the two lineages. It could also fit with how violence escalates in Cain's line, culminating in Lamech's boastful song. All right, but the text doesn't name the victim. All right, so it's merely just a hypothesis. All right, so I mean, you could, you know, it's more, you could pause it and read the rest of that. But okay, when we read Genesis, when we read the book of Revelation, the 12th chapter, and we look at what's happening right now here in the earth, okay, Esau, Edom, okay, is the accuser of the brethren. He's accusing you Israelites, okay, in preparation to justify what they're getting ready to do, because they're getting ready to come down with great wrath, man. Okay, so what they're doing, when you look at these Twitter posts, I wish I had time to go through the majority of them. All right, I mean, the Elder Required Quam brings up some of them. Esau Edom is tapping back into his statistics. You know, Esau will pull a statistic out of his ass in a minute. All right, and what they're saying is blacks are 13% of the world's population, and they do the majority of the crime. Okay, which that's a goddamn lie. Okay, we know who does the majority of the crime, but Jake is able to be used by the news, the media. Not to say Jake doesn't do crime, okay, but what Jake does only mimics what their father, the devil, does. Okay, and we're not justifying what Jake is doing. There's a judgment for what they're doing, but see what Esau is trying to do, all right, in the spirit of Cain and his family, is put Jake out there as the biggest problem of the earth, especially, you know, they're going to come at us, and this is going to justify him deporting, all right, slaughtering and destroying, man. Hopefully I'll edify. Shalom.